So welcome everyone to the CMSA U19 to U13 to U19 Town Hall. Apologies that this one has taken so long to get going. I've had some sickness as well as welcomed a new child in my life. So this one had to be delayed a little bit, but I'm glad that we could still connect near the beginning of the season to go over some things and then to also have a conversation with everyone. I am solo tonight, so if I'm not monitoring the chat super regularly, please know that I will get back to it. And if you have questions at any time, please put them in the chat or feel free to kind of raise your hand to notify me that there's something in the chat. I'm going to work through an overview of what we're trying to do at CMSA and some of the principles that we're operating under, and then get into the really nuts and bolts of the U13s to U19s for this indoor. And of course, answer any questions that you may have. So if there's nothing to begin with, let's get going, and I will start it up. So firstly, who am I? My name is Jordan Stewart. I'm CMSA's technical leader, and I've coached players really from about U6 with some of my district outreach with Alberta Soccer, all the way through to university age players. I'm the former Alberta Soccer Association Regional Coach South and Alberta Recs Director. And really my portfolio at Alberta Soccer was around player development, district outreach, and coach education. So around giving our players the best chance that they possibly can to progress into both youth national teams and professional structures within Western Canada and within Canada. And then also to help increase the standards within the game through district outreach and support. Sorry, things are just going a bit haywire. Let's see if we can get on track. There we go. I've got experience working in grassroots club soccer, much like all of the clubs that we're all a part of, as well as professional club academies as FC Edmonton, which unfortunately have just folded, provincial sport organizations with Alberta Soccer, youth national team development systems in Canada here, the college and university systems with both NAIT and MacEwan University, some community outreach, which is free footy, which is now free play. And then lastly, where I'm at right now is in a district governing body at CMSA. So a varied experience within the game and worked at numerous levels, and kind of have a unique lens on the game here in Alberta. Some important, just general info to start off tonight with. So one, we are hosting a watch party. So if you haven't seen this yet, we are going to be hosting a watch party at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex on Sunday. Doors open at 8 a.m. and it's for the Canada v Croatia match. We're hosting this event in collaboration with the Calgary Hitmen, really to create an event and atmosphere that had that same energy as the Red Lot for the Flames parties that were hosted for hockey earlier this year. All the net proceeds from this event are going to be supporting CMSA program and the Hitman Foundation. We know that there's a discount code. This is all available on our website, and the first 250 people will receive a free mini flag and Canada Soccer Cup. Canada Soccer string bags and swag are also going to be given away to all attendees on site, and there's going to be food and beverage for everyone. This is a family-friendly event. We've got the mascots, the inflatables, cavalry coming out, hardest shot contest, and all sorts of things going on. So please come out and join us. Tickets are $10 each. We've got about 500 and change people that are going to be joining us, and it hopefully will be the first time that Canada's ever scored a goal in a men's World Cup. So it could be a historic moment that we all celebrate together. And this promises to be the largest viewing party in Alberta. Some other pieces around photo IDs. So U11 plus, as we all know, need a photo ID, and you can get those now at the CMSA office. We're just finalizing our mascot name. I think today is actually the final round of competition for people to vote on what they think our new mascot should be named. And I would be remiss if I didn't give you some information about the two tournaments that we're hosting this indoor season. The Winter Classic, which is over New Year's, and then also the Family Day tournament, which, as you can guess, is over Family Day. Both of those tournaments are for U10s to U19s, and I believe some of the U9 groups will be registering up into U10. If you need more info, please just contact info@calgaryminersoccer.com with that one. So as we get going, I want to make sure that we frame tonight with the principles that we're trying to operate this league and soccer under. And these principles are that the game will be accessible. We will reduce barriers and try to remove barriers as often as we possibly can to make the game as accessible for as many as we can. We're going to be inclusive of everyone in Calgary so that they can come and experience the beautiful game regardless of race, sexual identity, socioeconomical status, and other factors. We want to make sure that we build a game that is inclusive and welcoming. We also want to make sure that our game is safe, that we're doing everything that we can to make the game as safe as we possibly can. And then lastly, that it's enjoyable. And it's not just enjoyable for our players, but for our referees and our coaches, our parents, our spectators, even the odd dog that shows up to the side of the field. We want to make sure that this game is as enjoyable as we can possibly make it. So with that kind of a lens under those principles for tonight, I hope that this can have a good dialogue and a good contextual dialogue into what we're trying to do. So I was brought on about 2 years ago now to write a technical plan for CMSA and then to also realign our leagues to what Canada Soccer is asking of everyone. So this technical plan is available on our website under our guiding documents, and you can review it at any time. But I wanted to give a quick update really on where we are with some of these things, as you can see on your screen, and where we're heading for 2023 as well. And you'll see that a lot of this was front loaded into 2021 coming out of a pandemic and then lighter on the back end. And that was an acknowledgement that all of it wasn't going to get done straight off the hop and that there'd be a waterfall effect into the next 2 years. We designed this technical plan under 3 spheres. The first one being govern, that's on your screen, and the next one being develop. And you'll see here that some of these pieces are delayed based on time, based on some resources, and also based on some things that we just weren't aware of that we can't accomplish right this instant, but we're endeavoring to accomplish these things as well. And then the last sphere is around growing the game. And so this is really around igniting the grassroots game and igniting soccer within Calgary to become a force and to become the premier sport within not only Calgary, but Alberta as well. It also speaks to growing our participants and growing our inclusivity within the game. And I would encourage you to give this a quick read. If you want some reading material that'll put you to sleep potentially, this can again be found on the website, and you can look at that anytime for yourself. Wanted to take a quick brief moment as well to speak about the player pathway here in Canada, but then specifically in Calgary, so that people have gotten awareness of who operates where, what, how, and when. And so this diagram is based off of long-term player development. So you'll see 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 4.5s, 5s, 6, and 7s. All of these are stages to work through long-term player development. We'll talk a little bit about that later on tonight. But you'll see that CMSA operates at stages 1, 2, and 3, and 7. So we currently do not operate anything within stage 4, 4.5, 5, 6, or 7. But this diagram has got the acknowledgement that typically you'll flow up through the game through these young active start, fundamental, learn to train, into either a community stream for life, a competitive for life through your youth, or into a standards-based league and standards-based environment like the AYSL. You'll also see some arrows between the boxes that acknowledge flow back and forth of players and of coaches and referees into different environments throughout the path. So you might go into an AYSL environment and go into a Rex program and Whitecaps program here and flow up into national teams and Whitecaps, and then eventually into senior national teams and full professional environments. You might also flow into here and come back into the CMSA competitive leagues and go up into Soccer for Life through CUSA and Calgary Women's, and then into university, college, NCAA, USL2, or even UWS environments, and that there is some non-linearity and some transference between these environments. It isn't a straight shot. You go back and forth, left, right, up and down, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge that within our environment. I feel as though there might have been another couple of things that I wanted to chat about. So just give me one sec as I scroll through this enormous slide deck. And don't be afraid, this is a slide deck for numerous presentations. So it's not just going to be one. Okay, cool. We are on track. You will see some of these coaching standards, and I want to make sure that I chat about what the coaching progression and coaching pathway looks like so that you've got an awareness when you're speaking to coaches and they say, IMC license certified or trained or whatever they are. And so what we've got is we've got community stream workshops at the bottom here. And not that it's a pyramid or a hierarchy, this is just where they sit on the image. Those are Active Start, Fundamentals, Learn to Train, and Soccer for Life. And these courses are age and stage appropriate for the player that they're going to be working with. So we would expect any coach working with players and children from people on this call would have a Soccer for Life minimum standard of coach education. From there, you can either enter into these and flow up into a C license or enter into a C license without having done any of these four courses. The C license is our entry point for the licensing stream, and you'll see children's development stream through a children's license for ages 5 to 12, a youth license, and to be launched youth license for goalkeepers for 13 to 18-year-olds, and then a B and an A license for a senior performance stream. We wouldn't expect all coaches within Calgary to be doing their youth license operating within a district level. Youth license is about $3,000. It's about a year to year and a half worth of work, and it is no small undertaking for most of our volunteer coaches. But you'll see as we work through this that we're working towards increasing our coaching standards. And so this is where we are right now in terms of what we expect from CMSA. You'll see that there are check marks, which are requirements, and then you'll see stars that are required education for one team official involved in provincial competitions. Now, the way that this image looks right now with a lot of recommendeds is going to change quite quickly with club licensing coming into play as early as May of 2023. Some of our clubs in Calgary have achieved a national youth club license, and some in the surrounding areas like Okotoks and Strathmore have already achieved a Standards for Quality Soccer club license as well. Standards for Quality Soccer is the base level of club licensing that Canada Soccer's come out with to ensure that people are getting a quality program and that there is a base of standards for these organizations and programs to be operating under. You will see many of these recommendeds turn into required because there is a certain requirement for coaches to continue coaching with SQS licensing. I'm going to hit pause there for 1 sec and take a quick drink and think if I've missed anything. And I see that there's one question, so I'm just going to dive into that. Are there any programs that will help fund the licensing? Many volunteer coaches use Jumpstart for their kids, so paying the fees are difficult. Yeah, it's a great question. So what we've done is we've acknowledged that the 5 courses that a coach would have to complete, or 5 criteria, I should say, that a coach would have to complete is their age and stage appropriate course. So for this one, it could be Soccer for Life. They have to get a police clearance with vulnerable sector search. They must complete Making Headway, which is free. They must complete Respect in Sport and Making Ethical Decisions. So depending on the Making Ethical Decisions course that you do, it's either $40 or I think it's $75 or $80 to just challenge the exam. Now, we know that there is a cost of around just shy of $200 per coach to complete all of the courses that are required. CMSA is working towards removing those costs and stripping it down to be in around $55 to $65 per coach to get all of that completed. So we've chopped it down by almost 75%, based on some subsidies that we've had, and then also some efficiencies that we've found within the system. That is our commitment to it. But what the expectation as well would be is that clubs would be supporting their coaches through their education and through paying for these as well. Some clubs run it very differently. Some clubs will offer coaches an honorarium. Some clubs will offer coaches their kid plays for free or a subsidized rate the next season. It's very different. So if you're interested in the coaching pathway, I would encourage you to talk to your club, or to also write us an email at info@calgaryminersoccer.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you with that. We know that these are some barriers, and as we said, we're trying to work towards an accessible and inclusive model. So reducing these barriers or trying to remove them is a key priority for us. I hope that there's a thank you there. So I hope that that's answered your question. And as you'll see on the bottom, a knowledgeable coach who's a good role model was actually the top response in our indoor 2021-22 survey across players, parents, and coaches. This was a key priority for people. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to focus on our coaches' education and our coach standards, because better coaches are going to equal better players. And so this is a slide that I share with the clubs every time I meet with them, so that we can show them how we are trying to increase the standards within CMSA so our players get a better experience and a better daily training environment. In outdoor 2022, these were the standards that we were expecting from our clubs. And we wanted to get making ethical decisions in there early, because we knew that the tidal wave of coaches that would need to get that done in 2023 ahead of the SQS deadline was going to be immense. So we wanted to get ahead of it a little bit rather than play catch up. And you'll see that there's an increase and a gradual increase year over year in our standards. So moving from outdoor 2022 to 23, we're looking for C license certified, not trained, but certified coaches at tier 1. The difference between trained and certified is that you've gone through an evaluation process. That's it. The difference between in training and trained is that you've completed making ethical decisions. So you can see that as soon as you've done the C license course and you've done making ethical decisions, you're trained. But we want to keep increasing those standards slowly so that our players get a better experience. Because the biggest stat for us within this coaches piece is that teams with a qualified coach will lose about 5% of players per year, but teams with an unqualified coach lose about 26% of kids per year. So you can imagine what the attrition rates are like within our game right now. I wonder where this one's going to take us. So that's a different icon. I should say educational material, but for some reason it says coaching standards. So my apologies. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about some of the educational resources that we've created over the last 8 to 12 months. And while many of you aren't here to talk about the Grassroots League, you might have a child who's in it. So we've developed a 6-minute video that is the entire 50-page guidebook put into 6 minutes about our Grassroots League and what we're trying to do with that league offering and program. We've also come up with definitions for our developmental and recreation programming, and then some strategies for some lopsided games. They're well worth a view, and they're all available on our YouTube account, which you can find by typing in Calgary Miners Soccer on YouTube. Something that does affect everyone within this call right now is our cup competition. So you might have lived through it for through outdoor in terms of the cup competition when we have launched. And what we know is that we've improved on some of the deficiencies in the cup competition, largely in collaboration with our clubs and through feedback passed on by both them and parents. The cup competition is an opt-in competition for provincial qualification. And so what we really want to do is we want to make sure that our league matches are developmentally focused first rather than a win at all costs. And what we found is that typically after the first 2 or 3 rounds of games, it was already very clear who was going to provincials, regardless of how teams finished a season. So if you lost your first 2 or 3 games, but then the players got to know each other, there was some chemistry, they got better, there really wasn't enough runway, as ridiculous as that sounds, for them to make a playoff push and a provincials push. And we also want to make sure that we provide a memorable experience for the players. And while it might look a little bit different in indoor, as this is year one of trying to do this, this is one of our key priorities to make into a marquee event. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. I saw that there was a question that came through. For resources, is there a reason why U11 and 12 is still not posted on YouTube? Oh, the town hall for that. I will check with our marketing people and make sure that that gets posted. Thank you for the heads up. Chat as well about our women and girls in soccer initiative that we are plugging along with and that we are encouraging our clubs to begin developing strategies around as well. And the Empower Her initiative has got 4 key areas, 1 being player, 2 being coach, 3 being official or referee, and then 4 in the other sphere. So how do we create better business leaders, better citizens, and develop more life skills rather than just within the game of soccer? So in the player sphere, we've developed 3 drop-in nights so far. And one day, with Steph Labe on her Champions Tour, which was an inspirational day, a great meet and greet, chance to take penalties on Steph, a inspirational chat, and a training session with her. And it's rare. It's rare that we do anything at CMSA and it gets 100% positive response. And literally that day this was the best day ever, and there was not one negative complaint from it. So we know that we're on to something with some of these initiatives. We just want to make sure that we're encouraging our clubs to be doing the same thing. And that event was brought in collaboration with Calgary Blizzard, and it was a great day. The other initiative is around the Big Sister program that we're trying to get going. And this is a connection to local universities and colleges to provide their players as role models and integrate within the team so that those players have someone to look up to, someone to ask questions to, and really someone to learn from on their journey. And while I'm not going to release too many details, they're coming and we're trying to work through that for a 2023 launch. In the other sphere, this is an example of something that we did for International Women's Day last year, and the theme was around break the bias. Again, I would encourage you to go over to our YouTube and give this a watch if you've got young children in your house and you're wanting to try and raise their sense of awareness and level of awareness. Shahiza Haji is a local entrepreneur who's overcome some tremendous biases and barriers for becoming successful. And she shared a way that her life lessons through sport and her sport of basketball have translated into business and relationship success for her in her life. So a piece there that I'd encourage you to go and give a watch. As you saw with us trying to raise standards and be more inclusive within our coaches, we want to encourage young women and women within our community to take up coaching because we really want more female coaches and more female representation from CMSA. We're willing to subsidize any C license education that a young woman or a mom or an aunt or a sister or whoever is wanting to do within the coach education pathway. So we will make sure that we do that. There's a defined pool, and then we have to see how many register, and then it gets chopped up from there. But we really want to encourage anyone on the call tonight that if you're interested in coaching, please reach out and inquire about that. It's incredibly rewarding, both for yourself, and it's great to have a female role model for these young women. And then lastly is around the officials. So this past outdoor season, prior to outdoor, we had 34 entry-level graduates who were youth female referees, and this represented a 278% increase in female youth referees in and around Calgary here. Again, we will subsidize the education for these young women and create an environment that is safe for them to referee in. which we'll talk more about here in a second. Within this referee piece, some of you might have seen the teal shirt campaign, which is really one of our retain strategies for new referees that are coming into the system. And so what the teal shirt campaign is, it's an acknowledgement that these people are brand new to refereeing. They're a first year referee, and they will wear a different colored shirt with first year referee on the back, so that people know that they will make mistakes, that the game that they're about to partake in is not going to be perfect from them, that they are learning how to referee and how to manage a match. And again, we created educational resources on our YouTube around the teal shirt campaign. One is a very in-depth and one is a brief overview that you can watch at your leisure. And some of the responses that we've gotten from parents of these new referees is, I feel more comfortable with my son refereeing now than ever before. And we really want to make sure that these referees are supported, loved, and taken care of. And so alongside the teal shirt campaign and that awareness piece is the mentorship program that we have, where we're partnering up these new referees with senior officials or even referees that are a year or two ahead of them in their journey. And we want to make sure that we connect them 4 times within their first 20 games so that they can ask questions, they can receive feedback, and they can get a developmental plan going for themselves to continue refereeing to whatever level that they choose. We have a pool of around 30 to 40 mentors who are out very frequently looking at these new referees and helping them out within their assignments and their games. Okay, I am going to pause there for a moment. I'll take a quick drink and I'll see if there's anything else in the chat. Nothing in the chat, so we'll keep moving. It's a quiet group tonight, so we might polish this off far quicker than 9:30. So hope someone's typing. We'll wait for that to finish. Just go back and give it a quick sec. Hopefully the fingers can furiously type. I see that there's a hand up. Sid, your hand's up. Unfortunately, I can't give the mic or camera on this webinar function within Teams. So if you want to type it into the chat really, really quickly, that would be great. Okay, I'm going to keep rolling because this might be a monster question then that we're waiting for. Great. So the U13s to 19s, the key pieces that'll be in and around these leagues, and I wanted to make sure that we chatted about some of these, are the bio banding, how the teams were placed, and then if we get there and if it's relevant, discuss some of those format pieces. So the bio banding piece, I should say. Biobanding really is a process of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with growth and maturation rather than chronological age. So children of the same age can vary considerably in biological maturation, with some individuals maturing in advance or delay of their peers. So that's a scientific definition from Sport for Life, but really it's an acknowledgement that these kids all develop physically at different rates. And we want to make sure that if there is a late developing player, because soccer is a late developer sport, that these players who might be physically behind their peer group can be placed at an appropriate level of competition for them to both enjoy the game and to develop within. And so that's the overall emphasis within the biobanding piece. But obviously there are some other reasons why some clubs will be biobanding players. Some of it is they didn't have enough to make a team at one level, and so they'll bioband a few players into a younger age group to make sure that those kids continue playing soccer until they can find another club or another team for these kids to move on to that maybe is of their right age or at their developmental level. So you might see within your leagues and within your games some older players playing in with the same game. Now, these players aren't able to participate within the cup competition to provincials and aren't able to participate within provincials. They can participate, though, within that cup competition if that younger group that they're bio-banded down into plays up. So imagine you've got U15 age players bio-banded into a U14 team that are then competing in the U15 cup competition. Totally allowed within all rules and regulations. Our process that we go through is the technical director or club manager submits a request to CMSA to have this player bio-banded. They are then meant to email all of their competition and clubs within that league, stating, hey, we have one player, we have 3 players that are bio-banded, so that everyone's got an awareness, but then also communicate to the parents who have to sign off on the form as to why this player is being bio-banded, but then also the duration and an acknowledgement of what's being taken away, which is potentially tournament participation or provincials participation. Our expectations are that clubs are not abusing this to put older players in younger leagues simply to win games. And our stats show that 83% of the players who have been bio-banded are not even on the teams that are first, second, or third within their divisions. So it shows us that the clubs are not abusing this right now. And the repercussions of clubs that are caught abusing this is that the bio-banding privilege essentially gets taken away from their entire club, and those players have to be moved to an appropriate roster within 48 hours. So while it's not a heavy sanction, it's a tool that can be used to make sure that there's parity and that this isn't being abused within the leagues. Our team placement process is, it's probably easier if I go, let me see here, 1 second. Sorry, apologies that we're jumping all over a little bit. It's probably easier if I give you this and work through it here. So our team placement process works like this. Firstly, all clubs will declare tier 1 declarations. So how many teams do they have that are going to go into tier 1? What does that look like? What does that piece of the puzzle look like? And then how do we build the rest as well? They will all put those in. We will review them based on historical stats and then also through collaboration within our clubs to gain consensus. We then have team entry, where the clubs enter all of their teams within their club into CMSA, and then we create a division, a very draft form of what all of the divisions look like. We then bring all of the club technical directors in with this draft division up on the screen, and we ask them, because at the end of the day, they're the experts and they know their players, they know the leagues better than we ever will. Because really there's one of me and about 5,000 games played this indoor, which I can't make it to all of them. I can't even make it to 1% of those. So we rely on them and their expertise in gaining consensus on where teams are placed and where they're going to get the most meaningful competition within their leagues. They work through every single division we have, non-negotiable, and they don't leave that room until there's consensus and until those leagues are as close as we can possibly get them to parity. Then we've got a complete list. We send it back to the clubs to verify. There's usually a couple that they've missed or need to move again. They move those, we get it back, we solidify it, and then we go through the scheduling process, which is steps 5 through 10. And I won't bore you with all of those pieces, but I believe this infographic is available on our website, so you can pick through it and see how we actually do this and what all goes into it. It's a process that seems as though you put all the teams in, you put the fields in, you click a button on a computer and it spits it out. And people constantly ask, why does this take so long? And really, it takes long because of the amount of steps in it, the amount of detail that we try to go into, and then also in the collaborative nature that we work with our clubs to try and create good leagues for these players to play in. Cool. I am going to jump in. I thought I saw a question in the chat. Why CWU don't have coaching for tier 3 level? How can, I think that's supposed to be CMSA, help them out? Clubs have got to get their own coaches sorted. They are responsible for both players and coaches within it. If clubs are really struggling to find coaches, we would expect that club technical director or the management group of that club to be coming to CMSA, and we'd work with them to try and find solutions and develop some recruitment strategies with them to find coaches. I would also encourage, if there's parents there and you're at the games anyway, can you help coach? Coaching's not as hard as you think it is. Can you create a good, positive environment that's safe, that kids enjoy being in, and that has kids coming back session over session and game over game? I was using my own Teams app and saw me see, but chat wasn't available at all. Rejoin next to the chat. Okay. Right. We will go. There's someone else typing, but we will continue. Wanted to talk about what this cup competition is going to look like as well within CMSA. So we've just come away from the Alberta Soccer planning meeting last weekend to get clarity on what their provincial formats are going to be for this indoor. And what we have is we have an unboarded and a boarded option still for these provincials. So unboarded looks like tiers 1 and 2 will be playing unboarded, and then boarded will be tier 3 and 4. And while we know that this isn't in alignment with what we offer at CMSA in terms of unboarded soccer throughout the pathway now, we know that all districts are not at the same level in terms of facilities and potentially organization as what we are right now. And so there's a balancing act to be had there. I'll also give some insight into the U13s. Format is 7v7 on the quarter fields. So the same red fields that you would play at Calgary West or Shoaldice at Macron. The U15s are 7v7 on those quarter fields as well. The U17s will play 7v7 on a third of a field. So those will be the blue fields at Shoaldice, or sorry, the third of a field at Shoaldice, the blue field at Calgary West, and the blue fields at Macron. And the U19s are 7-a-side as well on those third of a field. So a bigger area for bigger bodies to be cruising around in. I believe there was a communication sent out to the clubs today from CMSA that you can review as well and look to get some more clarity on that and hopefully answer any more questions that you might have. I'll go back here and talk briefly about formats, because in the kind of pre-registration in those questions, there's a prevailing question around why we don't play 9v9 as our indoor format. Our realities right now are the 9v9 format reduces the amount of games that we can actually play on one field per hour by 1 game per hour. Now, someone or multiple people are going to say, well, 9v9 would be a better experience. I'm not going to sit and argue that. I think that it could go either way. However, we know that if it's a 9v9 format in indoor, we simply don't have the facility space right now in our current landscape to be able to accommodate that for numerous numerous divisions. What we are working towards is year-long LTPD and Canada Soccer grassroots standards alignment within our game formats. And I'll talk briefly about that right now. There's 2 questions. For quarter fields, my concern on Calgary West is that the touchlines are not protected with a safety net. I've seen many balls and kids crossing onto the other field, which is a safety issue. Completely agree. Minor safety issue with that. We simply can't have that many nets within that facility right now, and netting. I would argue that a player running in and getting wrapped up in a net is also a safety concern. And we have tried to retrofit Calgary West by taking out all of those boards, which some would say is potentially a bigger safety concern than an errant ball or player running onto a field. and retrofitted it with a FIFA Pro grade turf surface. It's one of only two pro grade surfaces within all of Canada. And while it might not be the ultimate ideal environment in terms of spacing between fields, what we know is that 111-a-side field and that facility now is a massive upgrade as to where it was even 2 years ago. Another question here in terms of why did CMSA change the format to all boys playing on Saturday and all girls playing on Sunday? Not only did this happen, but tier 1, 2, and 3 in the same age group are playing at the same time, so call-ups are not possible. We're still in an endemic, lots of sickness going around. Having to get younger age kids at the lower tier and having them play up to a higher level is a recipe for disaster. Health and safety should be priority number one. Yeah, so great question. Lots to unbox there. Jeff, I'm not sure if you were in from the beginning. Safety is definitely one of our key priorities within the match day experience and within what we're trying to do. When we talk about moving schedules to have the boys and girls playing on 2 different days, this was actually a decision made in collaboration with our clubs and a recommendation from numerous clubs to move things into that manner. Because it then allows them to schedule their training sessions through the week and allows for them to have a greater handle on what the structure of their programming and their planning will look like going forward. So we know that this is year 1 of this, and if there are some adjustments to be made in terms of tier 1s and 3s play on the Saturday and 2s and 4s play on the Sunday, I'm sure we'll get there with feedback from our clubs and working through our clubs to retain that feedback. So we will make sure to have that conversation. Some comments about there are nets with lower curtains which are safe. Example, Hershey Center. Great. We'll have a look at that. Thanks very much for the comment. And can we not have all the tiers play at the same time in the same age group? I'm not 100%. I understand. I'm thinking the question is, can we not have all the U13 tier 1s play at the same time? Can you have all the 13 twos play at the same time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? We always operate in a manner where we don't put a cap limit on any of our leagues and divisions. So what typically happens is through that team entry process, and I'll go back here, when we solicit team entry, we have no idea how many teams are coming in at each age, at each tier, at each level. But what we do know is we have a finite amount of field permits, both on turf surfaces and boarded centers, etc., that we have to work with. And we also have a budgetary requirement that the clubs have bought into in terms of number of games that they're expecting throughout a season. So all of these factors lead us to having some constraints in terms of when we can schedule and the consistency in schedule for certain age groups and tiers. What we're really trying to do from feedback from both parents and our clubs is to have consistent days and time blocks for age groups to be playing so that clubs, parents, and everyone else can plan their life around it and that they can expect, hypothetically, your U13s to play every Saturday between 2 and 5 p.m. Now, obviously, dependent on team entry, if there's more teams, that becomes 2 till 6. If there's less, it becomes 2 to 4, and things fluctuate around there. There's also numerous other user groups who use these facilities as well, from lacrosse to ultimate frisbee to adult leagues to football. And so juggling around schedules and field permits to ensure some level of consistency is a much more difficult challenge than I think people perceive. And honestly, before I started at CMSA, I questioned a lot of this as well in terms of like, why can't it be Thursday nights at 8:30, we know we're playing a game, or whatever day and time of the week. We're not currently at that place, but that is where we are trying to work to, and that's what we're committed to do, is we're trying to get to that level of, we know that regardless if there is 4 U13 tier 1 teams or 40, that they can play Tuesday nights at 6 o'clock regardless. So we're working towards that. Unfortunately, we're not quite there at this exact moment. I'll dive into the rest of the questions here at the end. There's only a little bit to go here, so we'll cruise through some other pieces. Long-term player development is one of our guiding documents that we are constantly trying to align to. Again, this framework is brilliant, but it is difficult to fully implement. And I'll give you an example of how difficult. This came out in 2008/2009, and it's taken us up until now to even get our U7s to 10 sorted within the framework of long-term player development. Obviously, you can see there in the game formats and game structures, 8v8, 9v9, 11v11, and we simply aren't at that place, at least in an indoor capacity, to be able to offer that consistently. I remember someone asked, well, how many 9v9 games would we get if everything moved to 9v9? And I believe the answer was 6. So you can imagine only 6 games over the course of 6 months. It's not great for players, for coaches, for referees, for anyone really either. So there is an awareness and an acknowledgement that with additional facilities coming online in terms of Skyview Ranch and Belmont and Calgary Soccer Center being upgraded, that within the next 4 to 5 years, and I know that some of the people on this call might not have that kind of runway, but within the next 4 to 5 years, what the game formats look like and what the facility access looks like in this city will be very different compared to what it looks like right now. And if there's anyone with about $5 to $8 million sitting around in a bank account that's on the call right now, I would encourage you to go and build a facility and rent it out, and to continue to have both clubs and CMSA as your tenants, because we constantly need field inventory, and we want that field inventory so that we can expand our formats and do what's right for the players. And then again, this works through into stage 5, which probably none of us really operate within. Stage 6, which would be your building the World Cup player, that senior pro, that top level. And then into stage 7, which is where lots of us will operate, and hopefully the majority of our players will end up in terms of that active for life and soccer for life kind of avenue. This document should be available on our website. If it's not, please email us if you want to give it a read through, but I'll make sure that I find it and I put it up there. This document 100% for sure is on our website because I view it more frequently than anything else. And this is really the guidance from Canada Soccer, at least at a grassroots level. And while a lot of this is not applicable to the U13s to U19s, what I will say is that the U13s provide us an example and a lens into where Canada Soccer is going within their grassroots standards. And so you'll see game formats there in terms of 9v9 or 11v11. And I'll talk about that outdoor piece if there's U13 parents on the call, but why we play 9v9 and why provincials are 11-a-side. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you'll see there field dimensions, you'll see goal sizes that still are not what you're watching in a men's World Cup right now, which are 8x24. So these are still goals that are sized down and appropriate for these players' sizes. You'll see number of memorable events, and these things are all defined within this document. You'll see referees, you'll see dribble-ins or throw-ins, and all of these pieces that we're aligning to right now. The 13s, you'll see fair playing time for all players, and that's something that we advocate for as well. You'll see player to coach ratios in terms of team sizes and how many players a coach can actually manage. You'll see training to game ratios. All of these things are very clearly outlined, and number of game days per week. The interesting part to me is that festival style and festival game day formats are still advocated up to U12 and 13 by CSA. But I know after learnings with some other leagues that I think some heads might pop off if it went into a festival style match day. I'm going to hit pause because I see that there's a couple more questions in the chat. It's still around that same day piece. Does it make sense to the initial question? Let me see. 42. Yeah, in terms of having call-ups, again, if we reflect on this information from the Canada Soccer grassroots standards, agreed, it gives the availability of call-ups. Can you manage the 100 minutes game time for player? Can you have a minimum rest time between games within all of that? And hopefully we work into a place where that level of complexity is built into these schedules and into the system. We have a staff right now at CMSA, and I'm not making excuses. These are just our realities. We have a staff right now that there's only 3 people that are left within the organization from 2019. So we've seen massive staff turnover, and myself being there 2 years, I think is actually the either 3rd or 4th longest tenured employee within CMSA right now. So that kind of turnover, that knowledge vacuum that leaves the door with those people, that takes time to rebuild. So some of those scheduling processes that might have been in place previously with other league coordinators and schedulers just need to be built back up. And I'm confident with our staff right now that we'll get to that place and that we'll actually surpass that within the next 6 to 12 months. Jeff, if there's any other questions with this, please shoot them into info@calgaryminersoccer.com, and I'm sure our league coordinator and such can give you some more detail on that. I'm probably not the most knowledgeable to continue giving you more answers, and I'm not trying to pie you off at all or to stop the questions. I'm just saying the better detail will come from both Rachel and Kim. Also wanted to give you an awareness of what the player fees look like for CMSA. And what we've done is we've created a club registration handbook. And so the clubs receive this before they open up any of their registration as a guideline as to what language they should be using, what the league actually looks like, and really what they're advertising to their members, and how that actually plays out on the grass in the upcoming season. Now, what we learned is a lot of clubs weren't utilizing that guidebook to its full potential. So we're going to be making sure that there's better alignment with that coming into outdoor of 2023. This is our per player fee for these players in these age groups. And we've moved away from a per team fee into a per player fee. And what we've seen is that clubs are now able to budget better. We're able to budget better as everything is on a per player fee. Also, we've seen clubs be able to reduce the roster size now of their teams, because instead of a team, say being, I'm just going to use big round numbers, being $2,000 previously, and then putting 20 players on there to then maximize revenue per player based on their player fee that they collect, they've been able to say that team fee no longer exists. We can now put a team together for X amount of dollars and put them in, and away they go. So they're able to maximize playing time and ensure that there is more playing time. Now, I'm sure there's a team or someone that's part of a team on this call that's on a team size of 18 or 20 odd players or something like that. I'm not saying that that's bad. All I'm saying is that we've enabled our clubs to have opportunities to create more playing minutes per player. And then obviously from that CMSA fee, a portion of that you can see on the right-hand side goes to Alberta Soccer, right, to fund their programs and also their governing body. And then there's a CSA fee that goes as well to Canada Soccer. So really what we're left over is there on your screen, and that's your price per match day that really the player pays to us. If these numbers look different from your club, I would encourage you to ask how they're different, where it goes, etc. Not saying it goes into a bad place. It's just giving you information to have an intelligent conversation and a contextual conversation with the clubs. And then lastly, we get asked this question a lot. Where does that CMSA fee actually go? Where does the money go? Because the common sentiment around is that we continue with 7v7 because it's a money grab, because we can put more players on a field per hour and thus the cost of that field goes down. It's simply not the case. this is really where the fees go. So league costs is the majority of that CMSA fee in terms of booking fields, because fields aren't cheap, paying our referees, and other league related expenses. There's also a facility fund contribution that helps to fund future facility projects and upgrades like the Calgary West Soccer Center renovation and also the new Shoaldice bubble that's gone up. There's a small portion that goes back to Kids Sport because Kids Sport is a key program that a lot of families within soccer access to help keep sport accessible. Again, working back to one of those principles. A portion of them go back into Alberta and Canada Soccer. And then there's a small portion that goes into the administration of CMSA so that we can try to efficiently run the game and that we can continue to innovate the game within Calgary. Now, there's guaranteed people on the call right now that'll smirk and say it's not very efficiently run. You're probably right. We're probably not at 100%. We're probably not even at 80 or 85%. But we're committed to getting there, and that we have seen improvement internally with our own efficiency, with our communication with our clubs, and with our alignment over the last 2 years. So we feel as though we're picking up steam right now and that we can continue to accelerate in the coming years. I feel sorry for the people who have just joined because we're essentially almost done. I will leave you all with this, and I'll stick around for a few moments as well to answer any questions, but I leave the clubs with this image on the left-hand side of your screen all the time, where it's an image that speaks to me that as clubs, typically we and they pull in different directions all the time, and we might not know what the best direction is. We might not know what a great direction is, but what we're trying to do is to pull the game along into a similar direction. And that similar direction isn't going to be the same direction, and we know that, but we want to make sure it's in a similar direction. We know that clubs each have their own flavor, and us as a governing body and league administrator need to make sure that we set out a standard and framework to pull the game forward. And so I'll leave that up on the chat, or up on the screen there. Tim, it's apparently the email said meeting starts at 9 o'clock. If that was definitely a typo. Tim, if you could forward that email that you got to my email address, that'd be great, so that we can track that down and figure out where our error was, if it was. I will say this, Tim, as well, it's been recorded, so we'll make sure that that gets uploaded to our YouTube account for everyone to view. There's another question in the chat that regarding whether CMSA has considered suggesting refs or clubs use electronic whistles, which have the option to use a different pitch or tone, especially for indoor environments. Sometimes it's confusing whether a whistle is for a game or another one just on the next field. Sid, it's a great question, and it's something that one of our clubs has actually brought up to us as well. That is something that we are looking at. This is one of those pieces that we would look to test and pilot first before just fully implementing it, because it sounds very simple, and I'll agree it is a very simple concept. A referee just needs a different whistle, so they program a different tone within their whistle. But having that go out to upwards of 500 referees is a greater challenge than you could think. And I'm not slagging the referees off here. It's just the change management with that is something that we need to evaluate as well. But it is something that's come to our attention, and we appreciate that if you're all using Fox 40s or the referees are all using that, the tone is exactly the same. And sometimes players are getting confused with, was that our field? Was it the other field? Where is that coming from? So it is something that we're looking at right now and looking at trying to potentially explore for next indoor season. Question about, was there discussion about provincial qualification, as in what do the U14 and 16 teams register for? Tim, there was a brief discussion, yes, around provincial qualification in that cup competition, and what that is going to look and feel like. I'll put this back up on the screen and have a brief kind of awareness. Again, you could watch this on YouTube, so if I don't cover anything, it'll be there as well. Again, it's an opt-in piece. The 14s would play up into the 15s Cup competition if they wanted to. The 16s would play up into the 17s Cup competition, because the only provincial competitions that are offered by Alberta Soccer are the 13s, 15s, 17s, and 19s. They would look to enter into either, I see your question there in terms of same tier. That will have come out within the provincial cup qualification rules that I believe has just been sent out to the clubs today. So that will probably be published in the next day or two, either on our website or sent out straight to all of the parents and coaches as well. The 13s will play 7v7 on a quarter field, and these are the unboarded provincials, so tier 1 and 2 I'm talking about right now. The 15s, 7v7 on a quarter field. The 17s, 7v7 on a third of a field. Those blue kind of lines on Calgary West and Macron. And then the Shoaldice thirds would be the third of a field. And the 19s as well are 7v7 on a third of a field. Tiers 3 and 4 will look to play boarded for their provincials. So that will be back into a boarded arena environment. And that will be in a 6v6 with the goalkeeper included context, as well as a different rule book, which we are working through right now. So yeah, there's that piece. Tim, shoot us an email with that same tier question. Shoot it to info@calgaryminersoccer.com would be great. And we'll make sure that we get that sorted and address that. I appreciate that that's probably a question. I'm sorry that I don't have the level of detail and the awareness right now to give you an appropriate answer. But I know that Sonia, Rachel, Kim, Jen, even myself, will track down that answer for you ASAP, because that's that deadline is coming in terms of December 5th and that opt-in process. So we'll make sure that we get on it and that you get the right information. Okay. If there are no other questions, I don't see anyone typing anything right now. We'll look to kind of close it down. And once again, I'll just thank everyone for joining tonight. You can literally be anywhere in the world doing anything right now, and I just appreciate that you're engaged, that you're curious, and that you're willing to at least listen and have a conversation about what's going on. If there are questions, again, my contact info was on the page, but if there are further questions, please feel free to reach out to info@calgaryminersoccer.com, because I might not have the answer, but I guarantee someone in our building does have the answer or will find the answer. I would also encourage you to ask great questions of your clubs and to work through them, because most of them, if not all of them, and I say most because you never know, but they should have the information and an understanding. If they don't, that's okay. That doesn't mean that they're inept. It just means that they're probably overwhelmed with the volume of requests that most people get. So I'll stick around for another couple of minutes if there are any last final questions. But again, thank you all very much for joining. We'll look to get this uploaded onto YouTube as soon as possible. And I hope that you have a great rest of your evening, and hope to see you on the pitch. If you do see me in the stands or at a center, please come up, say hello, introduce yourself. More than happy to have a conversation with you as well. Okay. Great, Tim. Yeah, Kim will get back to you ASAP, guaranteed. So, yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't got back to you already. Usually she works 24/7, and she's wonderful, but she will get back to you. I'm sure that she's got that awareness. Last question, is there a way to ensure that all games during the World Cup final are rescheduled? Would that just be to info? Yeah, send a quick note to info, Ali, and submit that request as well. It's an awareness that we've brought up. So yeah, I would just send a quick email to them and just ask about that. Tim, what's your question about uniforms? Type quick. You're not the only one typing, so we're patient. Can we change the rule about home team has to wear pennies when it should be the team that came in the wrong uniform? You know what? It is something that we can look at and examine what that rule says and what that looks like. I'll also examine what that looks like from an Alberta soccer rules perspective as well, and go from there. So yes, we will look at that. The way that you've asked that question makes me chuckle, so I can appreciate that. Okay. Well, Tim, again, shoot us a quick email. Like, let us know what's going on, because sometimes we don't know those details, and then we can help to reinforce what the expectations would be from that team or club. How can I help to get tier 3 coaches at Calgary Southwest United? What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot both Chris and Sean, Pavla and Mello a quick note, just saying that this seems to be a concern. And if they need support, that I'll look to support them. But if they've already got strategies in place, then I'll look to allow them to implement those. And if not, look to support them through the clubs. So I will, phone is out. I will send them a quick message here and follow up. A citywide goalie recruiting fair. Tim, it's an interesting question and concept. There's lots to unbox with that, honestly. Um, I can give you opinions as to why I think that we're short on goalkeepers. I don't have stats or data to back you up, but or to back up my opinion, I should say. But what I think happens, and from what I've observed in my time in Calgary here, is that we typically have a goalkeeper from U9 or U10 or U11 that is our goalkeeper all the way throughout. And rather than cycling players through that position, so numerous have got some experience and some level of awareness of goalkeeping. And hey, maybe even some will fall in love with goalkeeping. My brother was a goalkeeper, so I don't know how people do it, but they do. Um, I think if we give more players that experience early on in terms of what goalkeeping is, and then support them as well from a training environment standpoint, I think that we'll see more goalkeepers and a greater, cross section of goalkeepers within our city. Goalkeeping, and I'm making a massive generalization here, but goalkeeping is not just, hey, we need a goalkeeper for this activity, go stand there and stop some shots. I always challenge coaches with, how often do you structure a session around what your goalkeeper needs? If they need to work their distribution, if they need to work their shot stopping, if they need to work rebound control, if they need to work on anything, how often is that the focus of the team session, rather than building out of the back or finishing in the final third or possession through midfield? Those are team-based sessions and not necessarily goalkeeper focused. And then I also challenge coaches with how much time they spend working with the goalkeeper as opposed to working with all the other players. Because I think it's easy, and I would do it too as a head coach, is that you offload that goalkeeper trainer responsibility onto a subcontractor or onto a goalkeeper training within your club. And then it somehow absolves our responsibility to work with goalkeepers and to encourage players to become goalkeepers. So I think that when we start to review how we act with goalkeepers and where we prioritize our training for goalkeepers, I think that we can find some areas to improve on. And then hopefully that results in a greater goalkeeping pool long term. Yeah, there's loads of clubs have got dedicated goalkeeper training. Yeah, it helps. I mean, it's a specialist position as well, so there's always fear from coaches to go and give information and knowledge when they might not have the detail that's needed to accurately help those young goalkeepers developing. I would hazard to say you're probably going to do less damage than you think if you're a coach, going and working with your goalkeeper and giving them some love and some effort, than you will if you do nothing at all and just leave it to someone else. Because I think the other awareness too is that other goalkeeper trainer that's being subcontracted out to or is within the club, do they know how your team plays? Do they know what that goalkeeper needs in terms of their development? Or is it just a session a week for them or 2 sessions a week or whatever, and a part-time job for them? So are they really invested? Are they communicating with the coaches? Are they integrated within the club? And do they have that goalkeepers, development as their priority when they're actually working through these things? Yeah, the comment about one session is a start. You can't stick to just that. No, at the end of the day, every session would be a goalkeeping session, right? If they're there as a player as well, that's them working on their distribution in possession. Can they join into sessions and just use their hands to collect a pass and then roll a ball out as a player in possession? Say you do a 5v2, a little rondo as a warm-up, well, include your goalkeeper in that. Let them use their feet or their hands to play in that rondo, and that's developing the goalkeeper in that moment, right? And it's not separate where you need a specialist trainer. They're just integrated as a keeper within our team session, and utilized as a goalkeeper, and sometimes the focus is put on them. So there's lots of work to be done around that. And I appreciate you guys raising my level of awareness as well. So that could be something that we look to help support and tackle and advocate for within the clubs. And then this last question is Tier 3 head parent coaches guidelines from CMSA. What we have is, I will scroll all the way back. Give me one sec. We have this in terms of our standards, which are recommendations really right now, but they're going to become hard and fast quite quickly. As I say, really it's around making ethical decisions, respecting sport, soccer for life, your CPIC, and then making headway. So it's about this standard of coach education. And these courses are all split up into two parts. One part is theory, which is online, and the other part is practical, which is in person. You do your theory first through Canada Soccer and you register through them. Then we get this big Excel spreadsheet that says these people have done all of these courses, and we organize, or your club organizes, the practical session. And you come, you work with a coach developer, you run a little bit, you get some feedback, and you get a whole bunch of drills and activities that you can then utilize within your environment. So trying to take that fear away, and just trying to help the coaches get better. Again, that's going to become a requirement in terms of that course going forward. But what I'm hearing, Shatal, is that there is a Tier 3 coach issue at Southwest. I've already shot Chris a quick message, and I'm sure that we can work together on a solution. Okay, if there are nothing else, I'll look to shut it down. It's just the three of us, cozy crew right now. So again, we'll look to upload this. Tim, thanks very much for joining as well. Know that there could have been some mix up with the times there, but we'll make sure that this gets sent out to you, and that you can review, and then again, ask any questions that you've got, either through myself or through that info line. So awesome. Thanks very much. And we'll look to see you soon on the pitch. Have a great night.